time to delve deep with the dwarfs. As the band Windrose say, Diggy diggy dwarf, I am a dwarf and I am digging a hole. So this source book is all about the dwarves. Yes, friends, come one, come all, let's battle with the dwarves. Let's dig for Mithril. Go find Gimli. So this book, like I said, is all about the dwarves. And this is set in the Galorian campaign set in 4 Pathfinder, which is Pathfinder's signature series, sort of like Forgotten Realms is for the D&D 5th edition. So as you can see, it starts off with little shorts, like kind of King's Wish and like how to use this book and everything. And then as you can see on the next page, it gives you like kind of a overview of the realm of Highhelm, the Dwarven, in sense, the Dwarven kingdom. So this is set in like the Five Kings mountain range in the realm of like Glorian, as I mentioned. So it gives like a description of the geography, the culture, the people, and like it's like I said, this is all about the dwarves. It gets into like the history of the area. Plus, like I said, it's in the Five Kings mountain range, and so it goes through the whole history of this, and like gets into like the relationships of the government, and then like and their law enforcement, military, because you know dwarves are usually best in military. So just look at films like Lord of the Rings, like I mentioned, Gimli. Look at like the Hobbit movies, like the Battle of the Fire Armies, and you look at any popular culture, they tend to be like the warlike cultures, of course, the famous dwarven fighter type of deal. So this gets into like as you can see, like the whole background on how to play like not only dwarves but like run a dwarven themed campaign. So I will be getting into like the Age of Ashes adventure books. So there's 6 of them. So like this is kind of like set in the same area in the same campaign setting. So this just takes a hyper focus on the actual dwarves. So like you can see like how it gets into everything. So now we're getting into the actual clans of Highhelm, and so it explains like all the clans. So like you can in a sense run clan versus clan. You can like maybe one clan is digging for Mithril and they run up against goblins, and maybe you could use like the whole like Balrog from Moria as a theme. So now we get like the notable figures, pretty much the important NPCs of this book and everything. So now we get into like the kind of like the who's who of the Highhelm realm, as you would say. So now we get into the actual gazetteer. So first and foremost, I have to pull out now, before we get into the actual gazetteer, the actual map that comes with this and everything. So good fold out map. So like the cross section that we saw earlier, I mean, as you can quickly glance kind of off screen or whatever, the white, that's the back side. So now with each like the cross section, if you want to go back and like in fact what I can do in each cross section, as you can see here, you can King's Crown, King's Heart, Stone Breach, the Depths, Emperor's Peak. What we do is actually, you can see here, the King's Crown, as I kind of move this sideways, King's Heart, then we get into a Stone Breach, and then we get into the Depths and everything. So this is a fold out map of that cross section we saw, so it gives like a good section of the map and everything. So as I fold this back up and everything, and it's doing like I'm doing a piss poor job on that, and of course I don't want to ruin it and everything. So now we can get back into the actual flip through the gazetteer. So introduction. So like you can see like in here how it talks about like all the different things of location types, support traits, and then each, like I said, it goes in like as I'm bumbling through this, we go into each actual section. So like this first part, now we get into the actual cross section, like map I showed of the King's Crown, and like it gets into like the current events. You can local demographics, locations, like as we flip back to like you can see the map, you can see the different numbers, so it corresponds with each of these numbers and describes each thing. And so we got like sidebars, like you can see local flora and fauna, the neighborhoods. Maybe I should like do a better job of actually getting this stuff on a camera. So as I fumble through this, so now we get through like the ash cult for sidebar, the stone helm, each different area, and then like a arrangement as I move this back and forth, so that way people can actually do a quick view of like the actual sidebar. Or maybe I can just instead of moving it back and forth and being a complete idiot like usual, you can just be like here and see both sidebars in each numbered section of that, the cross section that we saw. Then we get into options that you can use, so different like items that you can come across, and of course like a version of chests and everything, spy games. So then we get into that another section called King's Heart, and so this section, like last section, actually has the specific section, like in the actual pull-out map that we have. Gets into the people, local demographics, just like before, local flora and fauna. Gets through the searching the locations, and the good old sidebars like usual for the neighborhood. And ta-da, there we go. Strangers in King's Heart, different locations, local leadership. Rivathon, of course my pronunciations are always terrible, so like people can actually like pronounce those better than I can. So we go through each of the different locations. It gives the description of like actual stuff, and of course just like before, you get like different ideas for like this one is slightly different, so we don't get actual like items. We get like pretty much like people skills and stuff like that, and then it goes through each section like that, so it gives you like the total background that you need to run not just adventures in this, but this whole kingdom, as say. But it gives you the chance to hone in on each specific location and everything within High Helm itself, and so you could theoretically have adventures in and around each specific part of this kingdom and everything. So now, with this being kind of dwarf centric and everything, you'd have, like, if you were thinking about bringing in humans, dwarves, gnomes, and halflings, you could always you'd have to kind of do like a little more legwork to kind of bring them in. So like you could always like traditionally, like from what I remember from D&D, gnomes and dwarves tend to have good relations, so you could always use the gnomish merchant caravan, and they could hire a bunch of the other adventurers like elves and humans and like orcs and stuff to like kind of like act as bodyguards. So that's how you could introduce people into this dwarf centric type of campaign and everything. Of course, you don't necessarily have to use this as a dwarf centric. You can use this as like a kind of like a background information to hone in on this kingdom. So like you might be like in the Five Kings mountain range, and you could use this as like kind of like a center location, and use this as like in a sense like the capital, and use this as a center point for like the surrounding areas. So now this last section is the depths and everything, and like usual, like all the other ones, it has the cross section, gets into the actual locations, like the numbered locations you see here on the maps. It describes each one, gives us sidebars and like the demographics, navigating the depths, local flora and fauna, and continues with the actual numbered exact places and like named places that you're most likely going to get into. So with the depths, like as you can see, neighborhood and honor amongst thieves, the whole like each region has like a specific theme to it. And so now we get into, like I said, the five Kings mountain ranges and everything. So you see like the this kind of reminds me of something like the Argonath and like the stone statues and like the people saw in Fellowship of the Rings, the first Lord of the Rings movie. So it kind of reminiscent of that and everything. So this, in a sense, gets into the actual surrounding area and everything, as you can see here in the local map of the whole big map of Glorian. So now I'll pull out the dice tray I have of the actual mountain range. So like you can see here the five mountain range like right here. So it's kind of like within like this area right in here or whatnot. So people can probably correct me if I'm wrong in the comments and everything. Of course, I'm always kind of like my style is just kind of like winging it. So like usual and everything. So then like with this whole outer section gets into, like, as you can see, the other settlements and the ideas for people. So then you can actually get into, like, the you see actual high helm options, like I was talking about, like using the Nomus Merchant and everything. So here it talks about, like, defenders of high helm. So, like, and like I was mentioned, dwarven campaigns, non-dwarf options. So then it gives you, like, a dwarven option. So, like, it gives you, like, a lot more, like, a dwarf specific, like, feats, heritage, and, like, it's basically like in a sense, like a prestige class, like the stalwart defender. So, like, it gives you ideas for that and everything, and of course it gives you idea for, like, as you can see, high helm gear. So it gives you ideas for items, magic items, and, like, weapons, armor, rings, like staves, you name it and everything. So good old demon dwarfs even. So kind of like specific to the actual this, like of course, you can look in here, and these are actual NPCs and everything that you can use. So, as I said, the demon dwarf. So this gives you ideas for, like, NPCs that you can use as allies, friends, foes, or whoever, however you want to fit these guys into your actual campaign. So then, as you can see here, it gets actually into, like, the pantheon of, like, the dwarven gods. So you can see, like, how they would go about worshiping their different gods and goddesses and everything. And of course it gets into the actual, like, animals. So, like, instead of, like, horses and, like, camels and stuff, you got, like, donkeys and, like, lizards. And we got the stuff that you would actually see, like, probably stuff within, like, the grand depths of underneath a mountain. So, sort of like at Moria. I keep using Lord of the Rings references and everything. And of course we end the book with the good old glossary and index to kind of explain different ideas and concepts and everything for this. And so this is pretty much how a good guide to doing a dwarf-centric, in a sense, adventure and everything. So, and as you can see, like, got the good old trusty fold-out map in the back. So this is actually the alternate cover. So I was gonna get this freaking map out of the way. What good is that right now? But hey, anyway, to end this is the actual, like, like, kind of alternate cover to it. And that, as you can see, you got, like, a couple, like, ribbons that you can use as, like, bookmarks that you can, like, as I fumble around again, you can sit here and kind of, like, bookmark a couple things, and then be able to pull it right back out to, like, each section and everything, which is kind of good with stuff like this and everything. So this, like I said, is, like, the whole idea of, like, a dwarf-centric type of book for, like, a Pathfinder set in its flagship campaign set, Glorian. Of course, to my knowledge, Glorian is the only campaign set for Pathfinder. And again, that's something else, like, people could correct me if I'm wrong, but that's as far as I have come know and have come across. Glorian is the only campaign set for Pathfinder that they have made as of yet. Again, if you want to correct me if I'm wrong, go ahead and jump in the comments, because I'm still relatively new to Pathfinder. So, like, I do definitely find this as, like, a breath of fresh air, as a good alternative to D&D, having been being a veteran of D&D for decades on and off, first starting off in 2nd edition. So, and if you want to get into the mood of playing dwarves, remember the band Windrose, because they are pretty much a dwarf-centric band. So you can always play music when you're doing this type of campaign as well.